I talk to people is that with that kind of a consensus, we believe that our party, with its strong social and environmental messages, really can distinguish itself. That today there really is no essential difference in the most of the centrist and leftist parties about this commitment to having a long-term solution. Of course, I think the present government is disingenuous in some of its activities and its willingness to allow settlements, which I think psychologically create a tremendous obstacle to peace. And we would certainly not be part of this kind of government because we don't think that they are obsessively pursuing peace. But I do believe that the country of Israel, its citizens, are ready to make those concessions, and therefore our ability as a Green Party to attract people from both sides, I think, of the political spectrum, from the right and the left, who can unify in this notion that it doesn't really matter some of these old historic debates. What matters is that we can offer our children a life which is healthy, where they can breathe the air without feeling fear of getting sick, and turn on the tap water, not have to buy bottled water to drink water without getting sick, that they can look their teachers in the eye and not be embarrassed about the pitiful salary those teachers are getting. Those are the things which we all agree about, and I would hope that a Green Party can offer a full package. So there you have it. We're already making great strides at the local level. There's about 50 representatives in the City Council. Perhaps in that sense we're comparable to the American Green Party. But I do believe that just like Europe, we're usually falling behind them a little bit. This is going to happen. We see the tremendous progress of the German Green Party. Well, they've got 25, 30 years on us. And I believe that eventually when the dust does settle and we do make our peace with our neighbors, that Green is going to be a significant part of the Israeli political dialogue, and I hope that we are up to the task. So that's my sort of opening spiel, and what I hope I've been sufficiently provocative to elicit some kind of questions or comments, and open it up, and hopefully we can all now share your thoughts. I'd like to hear them. Thank you very much.
I have some water there for you and a little bench if you want to
that's wonderful.
sit while you talk.
That's great.
Does anyone object to being added to the video?
Okay, you're all on TV. So just tell your name, and raise your hand and tell me who you are, and go right ahead.
Okay, I'm Barbara Haston, and when John says that if they would recognize us as a Jewish state, I always felt that it's because he put the word Jewish just to recognize us as a state, meaning that there are some Palestinians who don't recognize them as a state. But the thing is that the word Jewish, because they, I think, feel maybe that means that they want all the Palestinians in Israel, that are mainland Israel, to have to be moved to somewhere else. Meaning, I always felt that was the reason why Abbas will not recognize Israel as a Jewish state, because of the word Jewish. To recognize it just as a state,
Could you
Would you
answer?
use the microphone?
Yeah.
Should
Should I repeat the question, or did everybody hear it? The question was, do you not think that by putting the word Jewish in Netanyahu's demand, he's in fact sabotaging all prospects for, and there's some people who say that this is in fact a cynical obstacle he's put in front, but quite honestly, the fact of the matter is that Palestinians voted, last time they voted, for a party whose platform very clearly says they're going to wipe off Israel off the map, and the inability to recognize the presence of a Jewish state is historically, I think, at the heart of our problem. I can't imagine France saying to Spain, well, you can't recognize us, we don't care if you recognize us as a French state, just recognize us as a state.
But French isn't a religion. That's the thing.
Judaism is much more than religion. Judaism is a nationality, and I think that for this is maybe a philosophical thing, but certainly for the majority of Israelis who are born there and see themselves there, living in a Jewish state with a
20% are Palestinians.
Oh, I'm well aware of that. And
so therefore, that's why I'm saying that they don't want to recognize that a Jewish state, because they even predict that that there'll be even more Palestinians than Jews.
Actually, the present projection suggests by 2020 the number of Palestinians will be smaller because of the ultra-Orthodox. Believe me, I have much more in common with many of the Palestinians, but I think that's not the fundamental problem. Look, Palestinians have a state. Jordan, with the 75% Palestinians, is a Palestinian state that we all want to. I think it is not too much to expect and to ask that one place on this earth that the Jewish people have a national state. Certainly anybody with a thimble full of historic consciousness who knows our history and the whole saga of the Holocaust and our inability to find a haven as maybe the summation of two millennia of persecution can recognize that this nation deserves to have a home. The UN recognized our ability to have a home. The US has always recognized it. I think that the Palestinians have to recognize it too. That's my own view. Now, I don't know if I would have stated in such a way. I would try to get to the table and finesse it out and do all kinds of things. But ultimately, yes, I do expect Palestinians to recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, and I allow them to define themselves as well. I would not take the Palestinian right to define themselves. Please let us, the majority of Israelis, if it changes the majority of Israelis become non-Jewish, they want to change the definition, that's fine. But for now, I believe that we have a historic and a legal right to that definition. Yes, please.
So, I hate to belabor this point, but let's say that you had the option for having peace without the statement by the Palestinians of Israel being a Jewish state. If you have that option, do you decline it because you don't get that statement?
Well, the question is what? The question was, let's say that Abbas says, listen, I'm willing to make a deal with you, here's the map. I would probably take it, yeah. I wouldn't be happy, but I would probably be willing to do that. But certainly, the way that the dynamics now, when they're making preconditions, but I think it's fundamentally problematic to sit down with somebody who says, I don't recognize your right as a Jew to have a state. I'm willing to, because when your political documents say you don't have a right to exist, I'm willing to sit with you, and all their historic propaganda has always been, all the peace negotiations, it's a tactic. It's a interim step. This is just like the Crusades, just like the Crusaders came, we wiped them out, and the Jews were next. This is not Hamas, this is the Fatah. I mean, remember, Abbas's doctoral dissertation was a Holocaust denying, okay? So it does make Israelis feel uncomfortable. And this isn't just rhetoric. We know that there's been, I mean, my university was closed for the last 2 weeks because we were being bombed from Gaza after we left the Gaza Strip. When we took that kind of a package, we said, you know what, we're just going to leave you to your own devices. You don't have to recognize us. We're not going to go with, we just leave and do as you will, and we've been rewarded by being bombed. So it's very, very hard in those circumstances. But I think if I had to take a gamble, I might be willing to take that gamble, assuming that, you know, and hope for the best. But I think that I would hope that the Palestinians in recognition would do better. But on the whole, I don't try to figure out exactly what the final negotiation. Put it this way, I wouldn't disqualify negotiations with them on this issue. That would be much I can say. I might require there's a final thing, but certainly to refuse to sit down or to make progress until that happens, I don't know if I would do. I would certainly not do that. Yes, please.
I'm Libby Traubman, and we have a Jewish-Palestinian dialogue that we've been running for 20 years. And it seems to me that one of the things that the Palestinians and the Jews have in common is their love of the land. And there's a lot, if the Green Party could reach out to the Palestinians and pull in people to be part of the Green Party and work from this common love of the land, the trees, the clean air, the water, because they don't have clean water. They are on the low end of the scale from what the Israelis have. And they don't have good help with their garbage, and they've had a lot of trees cut down. There's been a lot of disrespect for the Palestinian land. So if there could be a coming together of the peoples over their love of the land, it seems to me a really great place to build relationships and to build respect and to dignify each other, instead of getting into the conflict over is Israel allowed to be a state, and you know, which just takes you nowhere. But I think if you work for the common love, for the good of all the people, starting with the environment, recognizing that we are one and we all share the same living system, it could go a long way in helping build better relationships.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I could only say that in 1995, we started working, in 96 we opened our doors for an institute on the kibbutz in which I was living at the time, which teaches Palestinian, Jordanian, Israeli students. We used to have Egyptians, although they're not allowed to come anymore. And the idea, it's called the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, and it was just an opportunity to bring young people together to think about the region's ecological problems instead of individual ones. And once people started talking about this kind of cooperation, the whole dynamics changed. And so I would, when I think about this, in fact I should have gone in greater depth, but I'm delighted that you've given me the opportunity. When I think about how we can distinguish ourselves is that we do have some very special things to say about the environment. For example, we have a territorial conflict with Syria. Well, all around Africa and parts of South America, long festering conflicts have been trumped by this notion of peace parks. And rather than having to say, this land is mine, it's yours, why don't we have some sort of a binational peace park where we can say this is for nature. There's even a precedent in our region, Naharaim, which is a little island on the confluence of the Jordan-Yarmouk River, as part of the Oslo Accords, or the Jordanian peace agreement. Technically, it's with Jordanian sovereignty, but Israelis can drive in there without a passport. And that's the kind of thinking outside the box that I think that environmentalists can offer. I know that President Obama has sent emissaries to sort of raise this issue. I think for the present time with Syria, we're not going to expect a lot of progress, but I believe that that kind of thinking, and we've seen it now for the first time with cooperation at the local level between Israeli municipalities and Palestinian ones on river ones. One of the things, I sit on the board of Friends of the Earth Middle East, which is a wonderful organization with an office in Amman, Jordan, Bethlehem, and Tel Aviv, and it's so heartening to see people on the other side. And so ultimately I think that real peace of the Palestinians, maybe getting back to your issue, it's not really about like assigning vague or ideological things, it's about shared common interests and doing things together. And I would hope that if we can have some of these confidence building measures that the environment offers, and I can give you several examples. In fact, one of the reasons I have to go back is we just won a grant with our Palestinian colleagues to look at the issue of wastewater reuse and how do we ensure that some of the, what we call endocrine disruptors, some of these microcontaminants get taken out of them, because Palestinians will be recycling their sewage more and more, and they can learn from Israel's experience. Israel recycles 80% of its sewage. I think the after us is Spain with 22%, so we know a lot about, we made some mistakes. We haven't done it so well in some areas, and part of the problem is how do we get rid of these very, very part per billion things that mimic estrogen and cause all kinds of problems. So these are things that we share, that we can work together. So I really appreciate the question, and I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment.